was heavily criticised this week by City Watchdog, the Financial Conduct Authority, over its handling of thousands of business customers. RBS's Global Restructuring Group was found to have engaged in widespread mistreatment of customers in some areas. Here's an explanation of what went on.
In recent days, the Royal Bank of Scotland's past treatment of its small and medium-sized business customers has come under fresh scrutiny. So, what's it all about? Well, back in 2014, the businessman and former government advisor, Lawrence Tomlinson, alleged that the bank had deliberately wrecked small businesses to make profit, prompting a review by the regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority. On Monday, an interim report published by the FCA did identify a number of failings by the bank, such as interest charges being raised inappropriately and unnecessary fees being added. The report said that 92% of potentially viable businesses faced instances of inappropriate treatment by the Global Restructuring Group, the division of RBS that dealt with struggling firms. It also said that RBS had failed to handle customer complaints fairly and failed to support businesses in a way that met industry standards. The unit was said to have been insensitive, dismissive, and sometimes unduly aggressive towards struggling business owners. But RBS said that some of the most serious allegations against the bank were not upheld by the regulator, and that the way the bank operates has been completely changed since the alleged mistreatment took place. The bank has put aside £400 million to compensate small businesses, but the FCA has warned that RBS might face further action. And with many small businesses still waiting for compensation payments, the bank is still very far from being in the clear.
The Financial Conduct Authority has said it may take further action over the way Royal Bank of Scotland mistreated some small business customers, but does that go far enough? Some of those small business owners have exclusively told this programme they've instructed lawyers to bring criminal proceedings, alleging the bank defrauded them and caused them to fail. Well, we can talk now to Neil Mitchell. He's leading the group of business owners who've been affected by the Global Restructuring Group. Bill Esterson, Labour's Shadow Business Minister, who's called for a judge-led inquiry, and Clive May. He says his bricklaying business went into liquidation as a result of the Global Restructuring Group. Welcome to the programme, Bill. I'm going to start with you. You've been pretty clear that you want a judge-led inquiry into this. Why? How far-ranging should it be?
People lost their businesses, family lives were torn apart, and in some cases people took their own lives. So I think it's really important that we get to the bottom of exactly what happened. We've got to establish the full truth, and I think that can only happen with a judge-led inquiry. I've also got people coming to me from other banks who've experienced similar unacceptable and inappropriate treatment, and I think that's why a judge needs to look at this and to look at the full detail. It's got to come out so we can repair the damage, so we can move on, so trust can be re-established between smaller businesses and the banks. That's why. And look, you quoted the report. Something that's in the full report that the BBC have already reported. This was part of an intended, coordinated strategy, and management really, if they didn't know, they certainly should have known what was going on. And what we've seen so far is a good step forward. We need to see the full report, and I think that it'll only be when there's a full judge-led inquiry that we can get to the bottom of this. End this culture of inappropriate treatment, of putting profit first ahead of the lives and livelihoods of business people up and down the land.
RBS have apologised. They've set aside £400 million and they've already given out more than £100 million in compensation. You don't think that goes far enough?
No, because this interim report this week is just the start of an acknowledgement. You know, people want justice, people want confirmation of what was done to them, and the report talks about only distressed businesses being taken into this global restructuring group, but I'm afraid we've got to look at why those businesses were distressed. I know of businesses where their overdraft facilities were stopped overnight and they couldn't repay. That forced the business to become distressed. That's why they went into the global restructuring group in the first place. So we've got to get the whole thing out there. We've got to clean up what happened in the past. We've got to clear up what happened in the past, and we've got to make sure it can't carry on, because I've also got people telling me this is still going on today at more than one bank. We've got to get to the bottom of it, and I think a judge is the only way of doing it.
Where do you stand on criminal proceedings?
Well, the police are looking at this. I think it's highly significant that there's already a police investigation. I think the news that lawyers have
What do you
destructive.
think should happen in terms of criminal proceedings?
Well, I think when there's an investigation going on, it's inappropriate for me to comment further. But I think it shows that things are happening. We've got police investigations, we've got lawyers being instructed, and I think that's part of building the full picture of
I
what
suppose
happens.
it's about whether or not it's appropriate to go down that route, because there are questions around motive, or was there a motive, or was it poor management? Are we talking about dishonesty or incompetency?
The quote I gave, which is, I understand from the full report, and it's BBC journalists who've quoted it publicly previously, which is that this was part of a coordinated strategy. That tells me, and I'm sure it tells everybody, that there is a need to get this all out in the open and for full disclosure.
Do you think, as you've said, many people's lives have been, people have been distressed, lives have been ruined, people have taken their own lives. Do you think individuals involved should be held accountable?
Absolutely, and that's why the full truth has to come out. We've got to establish exactly what happened beyond any reasonable doubt. At the moment, we've got partial disclosure with this interim report. The full report needs to come out as well. The interim report's author has called for the full report to be published. That's right, that's got to happen too.
So this isn't just a truth-seeking exercise. Criminal charges would be appropriate.
Well, that's not for me to say. I think that's up to the police. But the point is, until we fix the problem with the reputation of the banks, the relationship between the banks and the small businesses, we can't move forward. We can't re-establish access to finance in this country. Actually, there's an opportunity. John McDonnell talked about this, of maybe using RBS as the way to set up a network of regional development banks using our National Investment Bank model. And maybe that's what needs to come out of this. But that's further down the line. That's one option. And the reality is that this has all got to come out, because what's happened to thousands and thousands of people and their businesses is just plain wrong, and it's got to be sorted out.
Okay, I want to bring in Neil next. You represent a lot of people who've been affected by this. Can you tell us what you're planning in terms of legal action?
We're planning to raise a private criminal prosecution on the basis that there's been a failure of the state to investigate. Yes, we learned last week that police in Scotland are investigating a number of cases. RBS are trying to minimise it, saying it's only one. It's actually a number. I'm also aware that police forces in Belfast, Manchester and North Wales are looking into cases. Neither police force, the City of London Police or the Met Police in the London bubble, are investigating any cases at all. We believe this is a failure of the state to investigate RBS, so we are now launching a private criminal prosecution with 11 case examples, and we'll be presenting that to a magistrate very shortly.
RBS has admitted fault. They have set aside money to compensate people, to compensate victims. What more do you want for yourself and others affected?
I want to see, as Bill says, a judge-led inquiry, or actually even a fuller and wider public inquiry. We need to have the full regulators' report, the S166 as they call it. We need that published. We need it published now. We need a criminal investigation so that thousands and thousands of British businesses, their families and their employees can see justice to be done. And then we need compensation, and it's not £300 million. This is a multi-billion-pound problem, and that's why the bank are trying to minimise it.
All right. I'm just going to have to leave it there for a second so I can bring in Clive. Clive, you ran a successful bricklaying business. Tell us what happened to you.
Well, back in 2010, the bank decided that we were in a sector that they weren't interested in. So they decided, in my case, to use a government scheme called the Enterprise Finance Guarantee Scheme to repay off a large portion of their debt, which was originally designed to safeguard jobs in the downturn. In the background, they were planning on cutting our overdraft further, so almost overnight our overdraft was cut from 245,000, which had never been breached, down to 20,000. Now, the Davis government scheme was drawn down. We were put into RBS's distressed part of the bank. So we were a viable business that were artificially distressed by RBS.
What do you want to happen?
Well, want to happen is that people, I mean, you touched on it when you said, is it incompetence or is it dishonesty? Back in December last year, we discovered that in the case of Global Restructuring Group West Register, which was a property arm of RBS, in flowcharts and in emails and in instructions, and in particular it was West Register Policy and Procedure Manual 2011, they were instructing all staff upon seizure of SME assets, they would send out a victory email. Now consider the victory email and then consider the family that contacted me and said that their loved one killed himself. Sorry.
That's okay, take your time.
Leaving 2 daughters, 5 and 7, because they were absolutely gutted to find out that, you know, when their loved one was taking their life, RBS was sending out victory emails. Sorry about this.
No, honestly, take your time. It's a really difficult thing to talk about, and we appreciate you coming on the programme to speak to us.
Yeah.
So given how distressing it is for yourself and for you hearing about other people who've been affected by this as well, what do you want to happen? What's justice, if you like, for you?
I want to see individuals brought to account. I mean, in my particular case...
And we can't name individuals here. Just want to say we can't name anybody.
No, I won't be naming anyone, but in my particular case, in order to achieve the government-backed scheme, the bank had to clarify that there was no assets available. I was instructed to delete assets from an asset and liability statement. Later on, they said the reason they asked me to delete assets from an asset and liability statement was because it was inherited by my wife due to the death of one of her relatives. Nobody had died. Now, is that incompetence or is that dishonest?
Can I ask you...
They're inventing deaths in people's family. And if I could touch upon the CEO of the FCA, Andrew Bailey, when this was brought to his attention, his response was, perhaps your file got mixed up with somebody else's.
But he's not here to defend himself, so
no,
we're not going to go down that route. I just want to know, have you managed to rebuild your life? Are you in business at the moment?
Rebuilding it very slowly. We've managed to pick ourselves off the ground because at the end of the day that's what SMEs in the UK do, you know, with the driving factor of the economy. You dust yourself off, but this experience for the last 5 years or nearly 6 years has taken its toll. You know, how do you rebuild a business that, incidentally, in my case, I left school with no qualifications, ended up building a business employing over 100 people, turning over 3.5 million. How do you rebuild that at this time in your life?
It's difficult, I know, and difficult to come on and speak about this when it's obviously still very distressing for you. We appreciate you coming on.
Okay.
Now, it's time now to get the latest weather update.